This evening we'll do evening chanting in Pali, page 18 of Chanting Book Volume 1, the dark brown book. Yo so bhagava arahang samma sambuddho soakato yena bhagavata dhammo supatipanno yasa bhagavato sawaka sangho Dhammayang bhagavantang sadhammang sasanghang imehi sakarehi yatarahang aropitehi abhipujayama sadhu no bande bhagava suchira parinibhutopi Pachima janatanu kampamanasa ime sakaretu katapana karabute patikan hatu amhakang dikaratang hidaya sukaya Arahang Dhamma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Soakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno bhagavato sawaka sangho sanghang namami. Annamayang buddhasa bhagavato pupapaganamakarang garomase Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Handamayang Buddhanusatinayang Karomase Tango Panna Bhagavandang Evangalayano Kitisado Abhugato Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho Vichacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu Anuttaro purisa dhammasarati sata deva manusanang Buddho Bhagavati Annamayang Buddha Bhigiting Garomase Buddha Varahanta Varata Diguna Biyuto Sudha Binyana Karuna Hisamagatato Bodhe siyo sujanatang kamalang vasuro Vandamahang tamaranang sirasa jinendang Buddhoyo sabapaninang laranang ge mamuttamang อัตมานุสติตานังวันดามิตังสิเรนะหังบุตตาสหัสมิดาโสวะบุตโธเมสามิคิสโรบุตโธดุขัสสกตาจาวิตาตาจาหิตาสเมบุตตสหังนิยเดมิสริรันจิวิตันจิดังวันดันโตหังชริสามิบุตตาเสวสุโพธิตังนาทิเมสารนังอัญญังบุตโธเมสารนังวรังเอเทนะสัจวะเจนะวัฏเทยังสัตุสัสสเนบุตังเมวันดามานเนนะยังบุญยังภาสุทังอิดาสัพเพปิอันตรายะเมมาเหสุงทัสสะเทจัสสะอายินวัชายวเจตสวะพุทเทกุกมังภกตังมยายังพุทโธปฏิกันหาตุชยันตังคาลันทริสังวริตุงวะพุทเทอันนามยังธัมมานุสตินายังคาโรมาเสสุวากาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมสันติติโกอาคาลิโกเอหิปัสสิโกโอปานาอิโกปัจจตังเวทิตาโพวิญโยอิติหันนามายังธัมมาภิกิติงคาโรมาเสสุวากาตตาดิกุณาโยกาวะเสนะเสโยโยมากะปะกะปะริยาติวิโมคขเปโตธัมโมคุโลกะปัตนาทัตตาริดาริวันดามหังธรรมหารังวรตัมมะเมตังธัมโมโยสัพพปานินังสารนังเขมะมุตตมังดุติยานุสติตานังวันดามิตังสิเรนะหังธัมมาสหัสมิดาโสวะธัมโมเมสามิคิสโรธัมโมดุขัสสกตาจาวิทาตาจาหิตาสเมธัมมาสหังนิยเดมิสริรันจิวิทันจิดังวันดันโนหังจาริสามิธัมมาเสวสุตามะทังนาทิเมสารนังอัญญังธัมโมเมสารนังวรังเอเทนะสัจวะเจนะวัฏเทยังสัตุสัสสเนธัมมังเมวันดามานเนนะยังพุญญังภาสุทังอิดาสัพเพปิอันตรายะเมมาเหสุงทัสสะเทจัสสะขายนาวจายวเจตสวะธัมเมกุกมังภกตังมยายังธัมโมปฏิกันหตุชยันตังคาลันตริสังวริตุงวะดาเมอันนามยังสังฆานุสตินายังคาโรมาเส Supati panno bhagavato sawaka sangho Ujupati panno bhagavato sawaka sangho Yaya pati panno bhagavato sawaka sangho Samichi patipanno bhagavato sawaka sangho Yaridang chatari purisa yugani ata purisa pukala esa sawaka sangho Ahuneyo pahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo anutarang punya ketang lokasati annamayang sangha bigiting garomase Sadama cho supatipati guna biyoto yota bido ariya pugala sangha seto sila di dhamma pavarasaya kaya cito Vandamahang tamariyana ganang susudang Sanggoyo sapapaninang saranang ke mamutamang Tatiyanu satitanang vandamitang sirenahang Sangha sahazamida sova sangho me samikisaro Sangho dukkha sagata chavidata chahita same Sangha sahang niyademi sariran jivitan chidang Vandanto hang charisami sangha sopatipanatang Nati me saranang anyang sangho me saranang varang Etena sacha vajena vadeyang satu sasane Sanggang me vandamane yang bunyang pasutang eda Sabe piantaraya me mahe sung tasate jasa Aina wachaya wacheta sawa Sangye kogamang bagatang mayayang Sangho patigan hadu triyantang Kalantari sangvaritang wasanghe Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. That's what we do at the beginning of Dhamma Talks. Usually it's a traditional chant. If we do Dhamma Talks in the monastery, or we have the retreats that we put on, the Thanksgiving retreats, our traditional retreats, normally there's a Dhamma Talk request, but I understand this is probably a combination retreat of traditional, non-traditional, old and new. Some of you who have been here, been on retreats with us before, well known to us, friends of the monastery, and some of you may be completely new to monastic retreat. This is a lot of people, big retreat. That's the 6th of July, 2024. This is ending the first full day of our retreat. So I made a few comments last night, opening comments. We'll continue on from there. And I mentioned second day is usually the most difficult, so I meant the second full day. This is the first full day, so tomorrow. But today is considered difficult as well. The heat, it's very, very hot. I'm sweating right now, even in the Dhamma, outside, inside. It's hot everywhere. But some people, different body types. Some of you may not be sweating right now like I am. So it's obstacles, struggling with the heat, and this is kind of what happens when we undertake a retreat, undertake any type of practice. There can be obstacles that arise at the beginning. So we have to develop a quality known as kanti in Pali. And in Thai we say otthon, one of my favorite Thai words. It means patient endurance. And when Ajahn Chah was asked what qualities he cultivated in his monastic life that caused him to succeed in his practice, he said there was 2. One was the development of this otthon, this patient endurance, and the other was the contemplation of anicca, or impermanence, uncertainty. So there's always the unexpected. How do we? And then we hear about this. We hear this phrase, "Let go." Just let go. The Buddha's teachings are for letting go. For me, I get frustrated sometimes when I hear people talk about letting go. So what is letting go? Well, just let go. Yeah, but what is it? And for a long time, I wasn't really able to get my mind around this letting go. That, obviously, if you're holding on to something physically and you let go of it, but in terms of the mind, how do we let go? How do we grasp and how do we let go? And what's the feeling tone of that? What's the flavor of that? So letting go is connected with wisdom and discernment. We can't really let go unless we develop wisdom. And wisdom comes about through contemplating things like anicca, impermanence. And when we gain insight into it, then the mind not only can we let go, but the mind won't be able to hold on, because it'll be like putting your hand in a fire. You won't be able to, by an act of will, keep your hand in the fire, or a very rare person might be able to do that, but your hand will automatically withdraw from the fire. You don't have to consult an instruction manual about what to do when your hand is in a fire. Oh, wait a minute, my hand's in a fire, it's burning, it's extremely painful. What do I do? Your hand automatically withdraws from the fire. In just the same way, according to the Buddha's teaching, when the mind, through mindfulness and through discernment, has real insight into the impermanent and uncertain nature of conditioned reality and the dukkha, or unsatisfactory nature, or the anatta, the not self nature of things, the mind won't be able to stay in suffering. It won't be able to. It won't be able to continue suffering. It can't. It has to get out from suffering. It won't be able to stay in, because it'll see, oh, that's the mistake I was making, and okay, I can't do that anymore. So that's what we're looking for. The practice is good to know where we're going and the direction we're moving in. However, we're not there yet, so all these years and decades of practice is for that. And the reason we're not there yet is because although we may study the Buddha's teachings, study the scriptures, we may contemplate and come to an intellectual understanding of the teachings, or even rationally, logically agree with them, deep down inside, the heart doesn't yet see in line with them. And that's what we're looking for, is that deep interchange that comes from study, contemplation, practice, consistent practice. So we start a retreat, we come up against some obstacles. This is natural. This is what I think of as entering the mandala, or entering the gate of a retreat, or any practice that we undertake, whether it's a special meditation practice, or we're doing some period of, we're trying to learn some chanting, or we're trying to make some sort of headway in our practice. There's always going to be obstacles that we have to overcome. So yesterday, arriving at the retreat, and for myself, I was tying up some things at the monastery before this 10-day retreat, and just didn't really get quite enough sleep the night before, so yesterday was a long day for me. And traveling here, and then of course it was hot, and then we had the opening ceremony yesterday evening, and then I got back to my dwelling place in the teacher village, and right, okay, great. In the monastery, we have morning puja at 5 a.m. We don't have to have it till 5:30 here. I can get a bit more sleep. I can catch up on a bit of rest. And so I got to bed about 10:30. So, great. I'm going to set my alarm for 4:30. It's going to be get some proper rest. So lay down, and then at 3 a.m. I was jolted awake by my fire alarm going off. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. So I was I was a bit disoriented. It was pitch black. Woke up, didn't really know where I was. I was in a new location. This fire alarm is just so loud. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Took about 10 seconds to figure out, okay, I'm Spirit Rock, right, okay. And then turn the light on, and the fire alarm is going off, and then it stops. Okay, there's no smoke in the room, okay. It just went off randomly, seemingly. Okay, so then I was kind of, what do I do now? I'm still really tired. And should I go lie down again? but now I was jolted awake and all this adrenaline, heart's beating really fast, and so I was okay. And then I was wondering why it went off. Should I try to do something with it? And then it went off again, and there was a spider around it making like a web. And I've known at Abhayagiri, sometimes when spiders make webs, make their nests in these fire alarms, it sets them off. So I'm trying to bat the spider away from the ceiling, and then so then it stopped, and then I took it down, and I was kind of trying to see if I could take a battery out of it or something, and then I blew on it to try to clean it out, and then it went off again. Me blowing on it set it off again, and it's kind of beeping in my face, really, really so loud. It was so loud. And then I thought, okay, now the police and the fire department's going to show up, and then I found I could press this button in the center of it that turned it off, and so. Okay, I'm up now. I'm not going to go back to sleep. And then the fire alarm started going off in Tanheimiko's room right next to me. So that one was down, so then the other ones woke him up. And so I put it back up. And, okay, I'm up. I'll make a cup of coffee. And, okay, this is going to be a long day. And then... okay, it was nice and cool in the morning, but really, really feeling very tired all day today. And then afternoon practice, struggling with the heat. Okay, kind of up in front of everybody and really, really tired, and then just falling asleep. Couldn't stop myself from falling asleep. So apologize for not being an inspiring example today. So, obstacles. These obstacles can arise, but then, I could become depressed or despondent because of this, or just say, well, yeah, it's kind of funny, and I can keep a positive attitude. So, with all these things, we do need to try to keep a positive attitude, keep our mind uplifted, and say, yeah, this is the body. This is what happens. This is normal. And it's normal for the beginning of a retreat for these things to happen. Oh yeah, the other thing that happened today was that I'm getting calls from Abhayagiri. Things are falling apart there a bit, and having to go during the walking period and deal with that and engage. Okay, the heat's not working, or the cool isn't working now at Abhayagiri, and it's going to be 113 or something, and a bit of a so having to contact them and walk them through some things, and then I'm really tired, so I'm not sure I'm going to do it correctly. So that's just how it goes. And I can think of other retreats, other meditation sessions I've done before, where at the very beginning it was like that. Did these meditation marathons at Bodh Gaya, sitting with Ajahn Nyaniko 10 hours a day under the Bodhi tree in India. And the second of these sessions that I did, it was right at the beginning. It was the very first day. It was October 9th, 2017. And I start getting messages that Abhayagiri is about to burn down from a fire, and using the Wi-Fi in India to try to get on and look at these fire maps, and there's this red around Abhayagiri, and it's like a circle of white around Abhayagiri on the fire map, and it's red kind of going in from all sides, and then going to sit in meditation, and very, very worried that the monastery is going to burn down. So that was an obstacle. And then, of course, it didn't. And then I remember the next time I went to Bodh Gaya, something similar happened. These obstacles started arising on the first day. It was actually the final session I went there was directly from America, so I was very jet-lagged. and it's a 12.5-hour time difference. And get back to the same meditation spot under the Bodhi tree, near the temple there. Okay, yeah, going to start logging these hours of meditation, and go at 5 a.m. when the temple opens, do a couple hours of meditation, get up to use the bathroom facilities, come back, and there's a dog sleeping on my meditation mat. So okay, yeah, shoo, go. And it wasn't moving. So I kind of like kicked it a little bit, and then it yelped, and it got up, and then it peed on my meditation mat. So what am I going to do now? How can I keep sitting? It's just... So it had a waterproof bottom on it, so I just took it and just flipped it over. Okay, I'll wash it later. So these things, they just always seem to happen. The beginnings of these retreats. So yeah, we can contemplate these beginnings and just hold it in a lighthearted way. Last night, I made some comments about suffering and the cause of suffering, so I'd like to go into that a little bit more this evening, because I know sometimes when we hear the comment that it's all coming from inside, it's not coming from outside, that the first noble truth and the second noble truth are pointing to it's all arising in the heart. The suffering is coming from the inside, it's not being imposed on us from the outside. So that does need to be talked about a bit. On the ultimate level, yes, that's what's always happening. However, we do have to set up conditions. External conditions do matter. We do come to these retreats. We acknowledge that being in a setting like this, like in a retreat, is actually far better and far more conducive to looking into these things, to cultivating mindfulness, to contemplating that everything is arising from the inside. So we do actually need to set up some external conditions beforehand. However, we shouldn't spend all of our energy focused on external conditions. If we expend too much energy focused on trying to make the external world better and so more conducive for my practice, then we'll be expending our energies too much in that way. However, conditions do matter. We do need to come to these retreats. We do need to do things like take on the practice of the precepts. That's an external condition, which is very, very helpful for the cultivation of mindfulness. So we do need to set up some things externally. But then as we go about our practice, as we build our practice, and as we, through the weeks, months, years, decades, build our Dhamma life, live our Dhamma life, then we can get to the point where we see that it is everything without exception, all suffering and happiness is coming from inside, is arising inside. And really for me, that type of a teaching is the ultimate empowerment. Because if our suffering is coming from outside, that's very disempowering. We can't do anything about it. It makes it so we're just always going to not take responsibility for it. We can't really do anything about it. Or we can just do very little maybe to change things in the external world to be better. But if we acknowledge and see that these things that, say, craving and suffering and these things are arising inside and that we're generating them, that's a great empowerment. That means we can actually take charge of our heart, take charge of our life. And actually, if we're experiencing suffering, the good news is we can do something about it. The bad news is it does take a lot of work. It takes practice, it takes effort, it takes work. So we do need to develop some resources, some tools to be able to work with these things. And certainly these type of teachings are not geared towards developing negativity towards ourselves. Well, it's all my fault. I'm suffering and it's all my fault. I must have made some really bad karma. Now I deserve to suffer. So I'm suffering, I deserve it. It serves me right. So we can develop that sense of negativity towards ourselves. And really the attitude to be cultivating is a very strong sense of forgiveness for ourselves and others, compassion. I heard recently a quote from Jack Kornfield, and which seems apt for this place. And it was a quote that something he said in I believe it was in the 70s, and something that was very striking for people to hear at the time was, he was talking about compassion. And he said, if you really have compassion, you can't hate anybody. If you really have compassion, you can't hate anybody. And I would take that and say, you also can't hate yourself if you have compassion. So that's a very powerful statement. And that really links with these teachings, with the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha gives teachings that are seem very extreme on the surface. The simile of the saw, if somebody were to savagely be sawing your arms and legs off with a saw, if you were to give mind to a rise of anger towards them, you wouldn't be fulfilling the teaching. That's a very extreme example. I wouldn't be able to do that, but that's the ideal. That's the aim. That's the ultimate point. And I can think of real life examples of people who have done things like that. There was a student of Ajahn Nyaniko, and she was dying of bone cancer. And this bone cancer, apparently it's very, very painful, incredibly painful. And she chose to endure it. This was in Thailand. She chose to endure it without taking any pain medication at all. So no palliative care at all, as she was dying of bone cancer. And the cancer was all through her bones, through her whole body. And she became very, very bright near the end of her life through what must have been really incredible full body pain that was very constant. And she had been practicing for many decades and was applying all of the teachings she knew, all of her tools that she had, and she was applying all those tools. And when she did pass away, she was incredibly bright, incredibly radiant, and for people who were around her, it was incredibly inspiring to see that example of what's possible with the practice. And so we can really think about things like that and consider that. For me, that's like the simile of the saw, the pain of bone cancer, and actually facing that with mindfulness and a sense of endurance. It's very, very powerful. I find that to be, stories like that to be very, very powerful. And so when doing walking meditation out in the heat, I think, well, this is not that bad. This is doable. This is endurable. A bit of sweat, this is doable. This is endurable. A bit of tiredness, this is doable. This is endurable. Or even mental thing, a bit of frustration, a bit of sadness. I can be with this. I can look at this. I can work with this. So if we look at the First Noble Truth a little bit, maybe go into that just at the beginning of the retreat. This is dukkha, the noble truth of dukkha. And for myself, I like to contemplate the etymology of this word a bit. And this is, du is like bad or imbalanced, and su, as in sukha, which is the word for happiness, is like good or balanced. Ka is the hub of a wheel. So dukkha literally means like the hub of the wheel is wobbling, or it's out of center, it's out of true in terms of using the word true in terms of truing a wheel, a trued wheel that spins perfectly. If the hub is not perfectly round, not perfectly centered, that's dukkha. That's imbalance, uncentered, not quite right, not quite rightness. And sukha, or happiness, well-being, that's when there's balance. That's when there's a sense of balance. And then there's different types of dukkha the Buddha talks about. And in the chanting, there's out and out sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. That's what the Buddha called dukkha. So that's the dukkha of dukkha. That's the stress or the suffering of suffering itself. And there's other types of dukkha. There's viparinama dukkha. So that's the dukkha of change that's inherent in, because things change, their nature is dukkha, their nature is unsatisfactory. And then there's even sukha dukkha. So that's where we have genuine happiness, but we know it's going to change. We know it's not going to last. So that's the dukkha that's inherent in happiness, where there's deep down inside, we know it's going to change. So there's a bit of, I wouldn't even call it necessarily anxiety, but that underlying stress or that underlying tension that is there. And we know it's not permanent happiness, what we're experiencing. Even if we do experience some genuine pleasure, genuine happiness, genuine gratification, it's going to end and we're left just seeking it again, trying to seek more fleeting happiness. So that's sukha dukkha. So these things, we contemplate these things, that this is the noble truth of dukkha. And dukkha is to be understood. In the Four Noble Truths, we say it's to be understood. And different teachers, like Ajahn Sumedho, most notably, taking that idea of it's to be understood or to be fully realized or fully experienced, looking at it from different angles. So that's what we call, there's the noble truth, and then there's the duty towards that truth, and the duty towards dukkha would be full understanding, or just to fully say, acknowledge it, fully acknowledge it. There is dukkha, there is imbalance, there is unsatisfactoriness. There is something that's not right. So that's to be fully acknowledged, understood, that that's just a present reality. And then we have the second noble truth, what we call the samudaya, or the cause of dukkha. And the Buddha saying that that's craving, or tanha, literally means thirst. Jill touched on that earlier today. Tanha literally means thirst. And thirsting for what? Thirsting for sensuality, thirsting for becoming, thirsting for not becoming or non-being. Or you could say thirsting for becoming and thirsting for annihilation. Or you could say thirsting for beginnings and thirsting for endings. Many, many different ways to look at it. And the duty with the samudaya, with the second noble truth, is to be abandoned. That tanha, that thirst, that craving is to be abandoned. And then the third noble truth, we have the nirodha, or the cessation of dukkha. So there's the arising of dukkha and the cessation of dukkha. It's a very simple equation. And the duty for that is to be, the cessation is to be fully realized or actualized, fully actualized. And how does that cessation occur? That is through the complete relinquishment, the complete giving up of that very craving, of that second noble truth, the complete relinquishment, the complete letting go and doing away with that very craving. And this is what that third noble truth is pointing at, is it's something incredibly subtle, and we're always going to keep getting it a bit wrong. And that's fine. We're all doing that. The monks are getting it wrong too, much of the time, most of the time. So and the Buddha got it wrong until he was enlightened. Then he got it right. Because, okay, yeah, letting go of sensuality, all right. But then going into becoming or going into non-being, or say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to practice really hard for 3 months, get enlightened, be done with it. But then we go into vibhava tanha, I'm just finished with everything. But then that's the craving for not being. So that's also a lack of balance. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to practice. I'm going to get these qualities. I'm going to develop the 7 factors of enlightenment and the Noble Eightfold Path, and I'm going to realize the Four Noble Truths. And, that's bhava tanha. Okay. So we vacillate between these 3, kama tanha, the craving for sensuality, bhava tanha, the craving for becoming, vibhava tanha, the craving for non-becoming. So then the Buddha says, well, yeah, you do need this path. You actually need sila, samadhi, panya. That's virtue, meditation, wisdom, discernment, and the whole path of practice, the Noble Eightfold Path, which we can go into in future Dhamma talks on this retreat. So there is a path leading to the complete cessation of craving. And so this letting go, or this relinquishment of craving, it can't happen just by an act of will. It's through following this path. It's through following this path and practicing and cultivating and stumbling and falling and getting back up and enduring and contemplating impermanence and doing the meditation and learning. So learning how to learn. There's and trying to see the Dhamma everywhere and really thinking about the Dhamma. And at the outset, I think it's good to say too, especially for people who are new to meditation, don't try to stop thinking. Meditation is not about stopping thought. And the Buddha does not teach that in the suttas. So there's right thought. That is the second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. There's right thought, thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of non-cruelty, thoughts of non-ill will, i.e. thoughts of loving kindness and compassion. So, but the Buddha doesn't say no thought is a factor of the path. So you don't see that. You see right thought or proper thought is a factor of the path. Cultivating proper intentions. So to think about these things, consider these things, learn how to use our mind, learn how to use our thought process. The mind's always going to be thinking anyway, unless we, cultivate deeper states of meditation, of absorption, when the mind can settle in a very natural way. And yes, the thinking mind will settle and calm itself temporarily, but the Buddha doesn't talk about consciously trying to stop our thoughts. We curb our thoughts to be less unwholesome and more wholesome, and try to get them in line with Dhamma, proper and correct, and letting go of things like anger. So that's right thought. So at the outset, we say, don't try to stop thinking. That's important, and a lot of times it just meet with frustration, tension, or like Ajahn Pasano likes to say, like we might even succeed in stopping our thought, but it's not going to be very peaceful. It's kind of like just putting forth a lot of effort, a lot of tension. And sometimes we have to do that. We have to be out of balance to learn about balance. We learn how to learn. Try to see the Dhamma, try to see the teaching everywhere. Try to see impermanence everywhere. Try to develop a sense of patient endurance in every situation. Try to keep the mind wholesome, whatever we're doing, if we can. And if we can't, then to be very, very forgiving with ourselves. There's a Japanese woodworking book that we got offered at the monastery, and it's not really a normal woodworking manual. It's kind of like a treatise on Japanese carpentry, and the opening quote, I quite like it because it's around practice. There's like verses that open the book, and they're translated from Japanese, and it's just 3 lines, and it says, a word of encouragement, curiosity. A word of caution, sharp. Words of wisdom, learn how to learn. So I think that's definitely applicable to Dhamma practice. And then also we hear these teachings, but really to start to realize or actualize the Buddha's teaching, and Ralph touched on the idea of forest monks last night, so we're going to be also teaching forest Dhamma, and we're outside that Spirit Rock is just such a beautiful piece of land, and being able to do walking meditation out in the forest, or we might get some opportunities. Some of us might go for walks when it cools down a little bit, and noticing the forest, using nature as just the last walking meditation period, walking down below near the parking lot and smelling the bay laurel, thinking it's just like medicine, and experiencing gratitude for the forest here, listening to the birds. And when we do meditation outside in nature, and we can learn from nature, Ajahn Chah said we can actually learn enough from observing nature to be enlightened, that could be our book. That can be our suttas that we're reading. And end with just one story about sitting out in nature that happened to me recently. Was during our winter retreat. We'll have 2-week solitary retreats, like retreats within the retreat. So we have a 3-month winter retreat every year, Bayagiri, January, February, March. There's a group of lay people who go in and do everything for us, and we then go into full meditation mode in the monastic community. And then within that, everybody will get a 2-week solitary retreat, so retreat within the retreat. And my slot was more near the end, so it was in mid-March. And last winter, it rained almost the entire winter retreat, which was lovely, and we definitely need it. It was 50% more rain than our average. It's really great. But then the rain did let up for about 10 days during my solitary retreat, so I took the opportunity to move out of my kuti and get some of my outdoor gear and go and live at a campsite, a beautiful campsite on the land at Abhayagiri. And I was outside, and the weather was just absolutely perfect, and the temperature was absolutely perfect. And so the external conditions were very, very good. But the thing that happens when the weather gets good is then the other animals come out as well, not just the monks. So the ants come out from the ground when the weather is good. So this beautiful level campsite, and then just going down, getting food in my bowl, walking back up, eating at my campsite, just in complete solitude, and just really enjoying the weather and walking meditation path and sitting and walking outside. Very few mosquitoes. But then the ants came out, and the ants, what they do is they establish lines, but they hadn't really established lines yet, so they were just coming out in mass from the ground, and these ants were wandering around. This particular type of ant, I don't know what it's called, but they're not poisonous, but they pinch quite hard. If they bite you, they're kind of painful. And so I saw, they came out about 4 p.m. or something the first day I saw them. And so I noticed I had a large mat that I was sitting on and had my things laid out on, and the ants just started swarming over it. And so I took the mat and kind of, shake it off, hang it up. And then the next day, I thought, well, they came out at about 4 p.m., so I should be fine in the morning, but it's a little bit warmer. And so I went down, got my alms food, came back up, had my mat set in the same spot, and then started eating my meal. And about a quarter of the way through my meal, I sensed something, and I looked to my left, and this river of ants was almost at my neck. It was all the way up my body, up my robe, and about right there. And this is like hundreds, if not thousands, of these ants in a river of ants. And it wasn't that they were going for me. I was in their line. They had established a line there. That was the line from the day before. So I was in their way. They were just going to go over me. But I know these ants can bite, and I didn't want them to start kind of getting into my robe. So I was kind of like taking this cloth and kind of like beating them off a little bit, and then just kind of I had to stop eating my meal and just kind of took some time and just kind of like taking my cloth and beating them off, and then kind of getting them off the mat a little bit, and then they kind of figured out what was happening, and they turned around, and then the river went around me, and I was able to finish my meal. So what I should have done, I should have known that if I would have observed them from the day before, I should have known they're going to come in the same spot. I could just put my mat somewhere else. And then after that, the days after that, I was able to move the mat, and sure enough, the ants just kept going in the same spot. They didn't come over the mat again. So that, even just simple things like that, that's learning from nature. And sometimes we might go, okay, I'm going back to my dwelling place. I can't stand this. This is all these ants. But if we learn from nature, we can enjoy living in nature. So if we learn about ants, we can still enjoy living outside even with the ants if we learn about their patterns and learn how they act. They have certain behaviors that they follow, and if we can actually not fight against them, but just work with them, just move the mat over a few feet, everything's fine. And then just watch them every day go in that same line, not a problem, and step over them and just work with them. Then living outside can still be enjoyable. So I think developing those powers of observation in terms of observing nature, we can really learn how to work with nature and then utilize our natural settings to be able to really, really enjoy it. But it does take some learning. There is a learning curve for being able to be in the forest, be outside, and really learn how to learn. So when we contemplate the Four Noble Truths and dependent origination on this retreat, I think trying to develop an attitude of learning how to learn. And how can I utilize this? How can this help me to develop a sense of ease and well-being? And letting go, but what is letting go? I think of letting go as skillful response. How can I skillfully respond to situations? So it's been a long day, and I'm feeling quite tired now. And I'm sure all of you, with the heat can drain the energy, so it is good to maximize our coolness time. I think I'll just end it there for this evening. And to end, we could do our dependent origination chant. which is page 68 in the golden colored chanting book, 68. Avijja pacaya sankhara sankhara pacaya vinyanang vinyana pacaya namarupang namarupa pacaya salayatanang salayatana pacaya paso Pasa pacaya vedana vedana pacaya tanha tanha pacaya upadanang upadana pacaya bhavo bhava pacaya jati jati pacaya Jara maranang soka parideva dukkha domana supayasa sambhavandi evame tasa kevalasa dukkha kandasa samudayo hoti Avijayatawe wa asesa viraga nirodha sankhara nirodho sankhara nirodha vinyana nirodho vinyana nirodha namarupa nirodho Namarupa nirodha salayatana nirodho salayatana nirodha pasa nirodho pasa nirodha vedana nirodho vedana nirodha tanha nirodho tanha nirodha upadana nirodho upadana nirodha bhava nirodho Bhava nirodha jati nirodho jati nirodha jara maranang soka parideva dukkha domana supayasa niruchandi evame tasa kevalasa dukkha Kanda Sanirodho Hoti. And the closing homage in Pali, I think, is on page 28. I'll double check. Oh, sorry, it's on page, page 28, the closing homage. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Soakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho saṅghang namami.
Thank you for listening. To learn how you can support the teachers and Dharma Seed, please visit dharmaseed.org.